We are happy to be able to make a presentation during this session and actually to be members of the family of human genetics in Africa. Today, earlier, 4 of us are supposed to be on this presentation, but right now only 3 of us have been able to join, and the challenge has been due to internet connectivity. Be that as it may, I think we will just start with the introduction of the 3 speakers that are here, and I'll start with myself. I am Aminu Yakubu. At 54Gene, I lead the research, governance, and ethics team, and largely our focus on that team is to ensure proper governance of our research operations, our biobanking operations, and our sample and data sharing policies and practices as well, while ensuring that our research studies are done based on highest ethical standards, both locally and internationally, understanding that there are different regulations in different countries. So our effort is also making sure that we work in line with those country-specific policies. Prior to 54Gene, I had worked with the US Centers for Disease Control as a science program specialist, largely making sure that publication products going out of the US CDC in Nigeria meet the highest standards of the US CDC. And before that, I worked with the National Health Research Ethics Committee in Nigeria for about 12 years, ensuring ethical practice across all the ethics committees in Nigeria. Colum?
Yeah, so my name is Colum Odulana. I head up the Genomics and Data Science group at 54Gene. And our role is to sit and work very closely with Jumi and her team to process, sequence, and array genotype data that comes through, and to perform analytics in the cloud, bring that through to GWAS at the end. Jumi.
Thanks, Com. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jumi Popola. I head the molecular genetics and biobank operations at 54Gene, and we're largely responsible for setting up of the infrastructure for the high throughput genetics laboratory in Nigeria, as well as expanding that to other parts of Africa. We've also established a biorepository of multiple sample types, and again, that has been driving our research efforts successfully in the last couple of years. And prior to joining 54Gene, I was part of a collaboration with the Cancer Research UK, the Institute of Cancer Research, and Merck Pharmaceuticals in Germany, looking for best practices and approaches to drive drug discovery successfully from bench to bedside. I'll hand over back to Aminu to go through the overview of the company.
Thank you very much, Jumi. I was for the mic to come on. As some of you may already know, 54Gene is a health technology company enabling precision medicine in Africa. And we are very focused on improving precision medicine. And we're trying to achieve that by building research cohorts that unlock scientific discoveries, while also ensuring diagnostics and treatment outcomes are improved in Africa, and of course the global community. And what we're doing now is really investing in genomic infrastructure and collaborating with ecosystem partners to build sustainable solutions that are beneficial to patients and the scientific community. We have a state-of-the-art molecular laboratory here in Nigeria, which is the first we have established, that has capacity for high throughput sequencing and genotyping, and of course also other molecular diagnostics, capacities. Dr. Juni will say a little bit more on that. What we have also done is to establish a set of capabilities and infrastructure that are designed to drive research and healthcare innovation in Africa. So what do we have? We have a biobank, and right now we have one that has a capacity to store about 300,000 samples. And that's just for our operations in Nigeria. We have plans, and the plans are already in advanced stages, to also commence operations in a number of other African countries in the years to come. Right now, there are a few African countries that are already in the pipeline that we've reached advanced discussions with, based on mutual areas of interest. What we also have is a very strong genomics operations department, which Dr. Jumi will talk more about, that has been capacitated with Novasec 6000 and iScans, able to conduct WGS and WES targeted sequencing, and also a range of molecular diagnostics, like I mentioned earlier. One of the area that we've actually identified the need to create impact is access to molecular diagnostics for especially diseases that are underdiagnosed in a number of African countries due to limited access to such diagnostics, with quick turnaround time in order to enable faster diagnosis and clinical decision making. We also have a clinical program through which we have access to over 100 clinicians that are both working as primary and primary principal investigators and co-investigators in across more than 30 tertiary and secondary sites at the moment. We have a strong data science team that is led by Colum, and Colum will tell us a little bit more about his team. What we are doing in that is actually establishing, world-class capabilities for data science, bioinformatics, capable of running analytical tools and visualization of genomic, phenotypic, and clinical data to enable GWAS and FEWAS studies for translational research. And the last but not the least is we have built in-house capability with biologists that are able to carry out target validation and develop company and partnership programs. Jumi, so this is, just pictures about some of the things we have in a molecular genetics laboratory. Jumi will throw more light on those. And Column. And there's a capacity building also for molecular genetics training academy that we have, that has been established in 2020, that is training young scientists interested in building a career as molecular geneticist to help create and foster their vision. And we can support researchers in many ways, as it were.
Jimmy, we don't hear you, sorry.
Thank you, Aminu. Can you please go back one slide? I would like to give everyone a sneak peek of the facilities and infrastructure in the laboratory. Thank you, on here. So just to expand a bit on what Aminu has explained and introduced earlier, the variety of sample types available for research diversifies the type of data you can generate from a certain population. And to date, our biobank is a biorepository of multiple sample types, ranging from blood to urine to saliva to fixed tissue, and in some cases, fresh tissue, all of which will help us drive meaningful research to understand the drivers of health and disease in the African population. The biobank is a high-capacity biobank, as Aminu has mentioned. It's also mirrored to mitigate against any risks in the event of, power or adverse conditions as might happen. And so we have two operational biobanks within Nigeria at the moment. And as Aminu mentioned earlier, we're planning to expand on that in the near future. Apart from that, we have a high capacity laboratory that is able to automate processes for extraction of nucleic acids from the multiple sample types within the biobank, whether that's DNA or RNA for downstream analysis. And all of these analytes also will be quality checked using our state-of-the-art bioanalyzer or capillary electrophoresis-based techniques, again, to ensure that the quality of the secondary sample obtained from our biobank samples is of the highest standards and will give robust and reproducible data in the downstream processes. With regards to the types of applications we're able to offer within the laboratory, we have multiple sequencers from Illumina that are capable of doing whole genome sequencing, whole exome sequencing, as well as targeted sequencing. So we have a NovaSeq 6000. We also have a NextSeq 550DX geared towards the molecular diagnostics, as well as a small benchtop iSeq 100, all of which allows us to have different throughputs to address different projects as they come along. And Com will show you later on some of the progress we've made on the whole genome sequencing front using our high throughput NovaSeq sequencer. In addition to sequencing, we also routinely genotype the samples that we have within our biobank using a combination of commercially available microarray chips from Illumina, but also plans are underway to start to interrogate these samples using our own custom chip. And Com again will expand on that in the next few slides. I have one more slide to just showcase the amount of training and investment in the staff and in scientists within the African continent that we've done. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, we realized very quickly that we needed to expand on the number of molecular scientists available. One, to help fight the pandemic, but also to drive all the research questions that we had imminent. And so we set up a molecular genetics training academy, which is a combination of virtual and in-person approach to train scientists on the basics of molecular biology and genetics and their applications. So scientists had the opportunity to do the theoretical and practical training. And to date, some of these scientists have gone on to oversee our COVID-19 diagnostics laboratories, of which we have 5 of those within Nigeria. We've trained even non-molecular scientists on the basics, but also we didn't want to neglect the fact that we have very experienced scientists who needed to augment their training on next generation sequencing applications to be able to drive the molecular genetics laboratory and answer some of the research questions we have. And so a combination of virtual training nationally and internationally, as well as in-person training in the United Kingdom for some of our scientists, all ensured that we had well-rounded, highly trained scientists to drive the work that we intend to do. And so with these offerings, we're also able to support African researchers via training and internship opportunities within our academy in Nigeria, and eventually when we set up these academies in the countries that we will collaborate with. In addition, we're always willing to collaborate with principal investigations to answer some of the research questions that we have, especially those that are African-centric, that will allow us to, better characterize the African population and bridge that gap that exists in the inequality in the healthcare and even in the amount of genomic data from Africans. And on that note, I will hand over to Dr. Com. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Right, so I'll give a quick overview of the Genomics and Data Science Group. And as I mentioned before, we sit between the lab and translational genetics and discovery divisions. And what we do really is we've kind of 2 functions. One is bioinformatics, data science, And the second is analytical genomics and kind of gene discovery, target discovery functions. And so a lot of, we're new, we started this year. A lot of our efforts have been in building robust, scalable pipelines, in AWS, and and that are reproducible, scalable, and with good provenance, and we can track everything that's going on. And so we've really been focused on building best practices GATK for the whole genome sequence data, and now we're moving towards developing imputation and GWAS analytical pipelines to follow that up. And then the third component is vetting and assessing the quality of the phenotype data that emerges, and just making sure that the inputs to our discovery are pretty clean and sanity checked. Okay, and then next slide, please, Amina. Okay, so one of our earlier efforts this year was to design a pretty low-cost array that could work with the sequence data that we have, and allow us to basically use our sequence data as a imputation reference, coupled with our array to allow us to perform GWAS at scale. And so the idea here was to largely seed the array with, backbone content from diverse populations. So we use the ADPC and mega array backbone content, and then an additional bolus of variants reflected several sources from GKB, GWAS catalog, African-specific EQTLs, aims that we identified from our sequence data, variants of interest, variants that were deleterious in our own sequence data, and then high confidence ClinVar variants. And so the idea here was that the content that we had added was kind of taken directly from our 1,000 sequences across for which we had 50 ethno-linguistic groups, and we were able to see identify markers that were stratifying across those. So we think that content will be quite useful going forward, and as we continue to scale up, and as we continue to expand into additional countries. The objective there would be to inform the customer array with content that is specific and unique to those populations. Next slide, please. Okay, and just a quick plug that we have a few open positions. Taking up the kind of engineering division, also specifically focused on rare diseases, and then lastly, kind of classic, GWAS and imputation positions as well. Okay, and then just kind of a teaser, and I'll go really quickly through this, but next slide, please, Aminu. Just specifically looking at the sequence data for which we've been looking at for the last few months. In the top left, this is just an example of what we can do. And here we're using cross-population extended haplotype homozygosity to identify variants that are under selection in one or the other population. And here we're using ethno-linguistic groups from the north and the south of Nigeria, and we can see some well-known loci are included here, and I haven't annotated them. It would take a long time to get through them, but so we do see kind of unique stories emerging from these different linguistic groups. On the top right, just showing the principal components plot. And one thing that's very interesting to explore is in these top the more prevalent ethno-linguistic groups in our sequencing data, we do see kind of broad themes emerging. And kind of distinct clusters, and that's also emulated in the admixture plot, bar plot that you see just beneath it. And then in the bottom left, we're interested in stories, for example, COVID risk or protective variants and haplotypes that are enriched or not enriched, and just shedding some insight into these quite topical variants, and what are their frequencies across different ethno-linguistic groups in Nigeria and beyond. And then lastly, it's little is really known. This is the bottom right in terms of Neanderthal admixture. Little is really known about the level of Neanderthal or extinct ghost lineages introgression into African populations, and we're very curious into kind of exploring those and seeing that those kind of introgressed segments fix and why they were fixed, and did they confer specific protections historically. So a lot of kind of pop gen going on at the moment, and we'll move to kind of larger scale target discovery over the coming months. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colum. And I will be talking about the African Center for Translational Genomics, which is an initiative by 54Gene. I know that to largely create impact. So the idea is we are focused on adding value and working together with our collaborators and young scientists in Africa. Hello? Oh, okay. Thank you. So once again, our effort through the African Center for Translational Genomics is really to create sustainable impact. And by that, what we mean is actually working together with young scientists, empowering them so that they can become the future of genomics research in Africa, largely contributing to some of the great work that has been done by other initiatives such as the History Africa. But we also are focused greatly on building their capacity through PhD scholarships, some internships, and some small grants, for small research studies. And but closely linked to that is our effort to also promote translational research and precision medicine. And with that, we're looking at partnership opportunities across different African countries, because we know that there's a lot of thought leaders doing great work out there. And our vision through our translational research and precision medicine is, in addition to our own in-house grown initiatives to power translational research and precision medicine, is also to see how we can work together with other collaborators in translational research. We want to be able to ensure that better efficacy of medicines for Africans and the greater population. And I think the importance of that, looking at what we know right now about some of the drugs that have been developed, cannot be overemphasized. But also through precision medicine, we want to add value care that Africans are receiving by enabling individualized and precise care that utilizes patient-unique genetic identity. What are some of the things that we're doing through that? And I think I may have mentioned that already. We're trying to achieve that through grants to researchers in Africa for primary and secondary research. We are collaborating, doing collaborative trainings, and interested in collaboration to build capacity in statistical genetics, genetic epidemiology, and computational biology. We're also already providing internships, and part of that is what Jumi has also discussed, part of the academy, but internships across all our pipelines to deepen skills in molecular genetic analysis, then also promoting awareness and academic discourse on ethics of genomics research. So what we've realized, and which is not news actually, is a lot of the literature on the ethics of genomics research has been driven mostly by colleagues from the Western countries. What we're trying to see is how we can get Africans to, how we can also improve the voice or increase the voice of Africans in discussing ethical issues in genomics research, as it were, just in addition to some of the initiatives that are out there. Some of the milestones we've achieved already is this year we are awarding 4 PhDs. The call for the PhD grants just closed in end of August. And we have awarded a postdoc fellowship So our PhD is Pan-African, so it's not limited to just Nigeria, but it was open to all Africans. And then we're also providing writing support grant to discuss LC issues in genomics research. So this year, we are focusing on our writing support grant to discuss benefit sharing. We believe that there's still a lot to be discussed, especially hearing from African perspective of African bioethicists and other practitioners, and we want to power that. Based on, in terms of some of our collaboration to drive translational research and precision medicine. In Nigeria, we have established the Non-Communicable Diseases Genetic Heritage Study Consortium. This is a consortium between 54Gene and leading government research institutions in Nigeria. So the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research and the Nigerian National Biotechnology Development Agency. So there is a Center for Genomics Research and Innovation at the Nigerian Biotechnology Development Agency. We are working directly with that Center for Genomic Research and Innovation. And the whole idea through that collaboration is to see how we can together work on high impact genomic research studies that could also, the findings of which could help improve public health practice, in addition to bringing on board new knowledge that could improve healthcare for Africans. We have 2 large studies in that collaboration. One which is hospital-based, which is hospital-based, and through which we are looking at major non-communicable disease markers. So we are looking at cancers, we're looking at endocrine diseases, diabetes and thyroid. We are looking at neurodegenerative diseases, and we're looking at sickle cell diseases as well. We also are expanding that focus starting this year to look at additional non-communicable disease markers, and also to look at rare diseases, which we believe is also an area that is underdiagnosed, and people are not receiving the right care they ought to have received because of essentially that level of poor diagnosis, but also poor awareness of what rare diseases are. And we're looking at also, in combination, being able to provide an environment where people with rare diseases can feel at home and can feel that they are not left alone, that they are really part of the healthcare system, and they are being cared for, just like people with other diseases. Some of the other initiatives we have right now is a collaboration with the Tanzania Human Genetics Organization, which we have just, we are working to see how we can drive genomics research also in Tanzania. There are other 2 more countries that we are in consultation with. And again, our focus is always to work within areas of interest, primarily to the country partners, but of course, areas that we have also shared interest in. And that area simply is areas of priority to Africans, and in health issues that are not receiving, or that have not yet received the adequate attention that they deserve. So this is just a very important, philosophy that we have at 54Gene, talking about our commitment to our brothers and sisters in Africa. So the most important thing is we want to be able to do what we are doing together with our brothers and sisters in Africa. Just like the saying goes, if you want to go, so there's the African saying that says it's very important for people to work together in order to go very far. And really that's our commitment. We want to be able to go far by working together with scientists and young African researchers, but also working together with the patients or people that are with the healthcare system, as the case is. So looking at 5 core commitments. One, we want to be able to advance better health outcomes for all Africans through precision medicine and early diagnosis. We want to be able to address the high unmet need for novel therapeutics. We want to be able to increase ethical genomics research conducted within Africa. We want to be able to ensure an African footprint for sustainable growth and job creation. And we want to also build multi-sectoral partnerships for rapid healthcare delivery. And I think all of these points have actually come through some of the bit of things I have said in my presentation, and of course in Columns and Dr. Jumi's presentation. So our collective and collaborative, our impact is collective and collaborative, requiring partnership and participation. And this is just really emphasizing our focus on ethical responsibility, which I have mentioned much earlier in sort of the things that we're doing, not only looking introspectively and consistently or continuously into our operations and our partnerships, but also trying to promote thought leadership on ethical issues. Investment in research infrastructure, which is part of what we have all discussed earlier. We want to be able to create meaningful jobs. So some of the experiences we have found is that there are still quite a number of well-trained Africans out there that have studied in a number of other Western countries that are actually looking for opportunities to come back and create impact in Africa. Our modest contribution in sort of the expansions we're having is to enable that for as many as we can modestly do. Knowledge transfer is at the core of our work. Or we're looking at ensuring that we work together with all our partners to be able to, from the data we generate through our partnerships, publish widely in order to be able to add to the body of knowledge that is already out there. Empowering African genomic researchers was one of the core areas that I had mentioned through the African Center of Genomics, Translational Genomics, but of course also through some of the work that Dr. Jumi is doing at the Genomics Molecular Genetics Institute. Environmental sustainability is at the core of what we're doing. And lastly, but not the least, is benefit sharing, which is also very critical and important to, some of the work that we're doing. We want to be able to ensure that within the framework that is available out there, we're able to give back to the societies that we're working in ways that demonstrate, first and foremost, back to the first issue that I mentioned here, our ethical responsibility to not just our participants, but the African society at large. Thank you very much.